Welcome everyone to another session of answer writing practice. Daily answer writing practice is an excellent initiative of Vajiram and Ravi to make sure you are mains ready. Every day there are 3 questions, 2 questions based on static topics and 1 question based on current affairs. Today we are going to see static questions from GS to social justice. We will be talking about issues related to development and management of social sector, services related to health, education and human resource, and we'll be also talking about issues related to poverty and hunger. Now let us see overview of the 3 questions. The very first question we have is with respect to issues related to primary educational institutions. We have seen there are various ups and downs like successes with respect to enrollment ratio, but there are also certain failures with respect to the quality in primary education. So that's something we'll see in question number 1. In question number 2, we will talk about hunger and food insecurity. Despite having achieved the food sufficiency, self-sufficiency, we are still facing acute problem of hunger as well as food insecurity. So in that question, we will talk about different dimensions related to it. In the third question, we will be talking about the recent affairs. Recently, we saw Women Reservation Bill. We'll talk about significance and certain challenges associated with it. So let us start with question number 1. Let's read the question. The government schools saw a sharp rise in the number of enrollments, whereas basic literacy level of children have taken a big hit. In this context, elaborate on the issues plaguing primary education institutions. Also suggest measures to ensure impactful outcomes of learning in school. So let us break down this question. We can see there's a statement, government schools saw a sharp rise in the number of enrollments, whereas basic literacy level of children have taken a hit. We can use this statement in the introduction. We can start with certain data points. As it's mentioning that there is a sharp rise. So over here, you can talk about enrollment data. We can compare 2 different years to understand what is the gap going on. So in 2018, the enrollment rate was almost 97.2% in primary education. Primary education is defined based on years from 7 to 14 years. However, that number drastically improved to 98.4% of the children in that age bracket. They were engaged in primary education institutions. So they were enrolled in it. So thus that this number definitely shot up. But we saw that certain learning outcomes, basic literacy, saw a dip. You can use reports like Pratham's report as a report. Over here we have witnessed that children of class 3, their reading comprehension has dipped. Previously, in 2018, 27.8% of students were able to read their textbook, which saw a dip, and now only 20.5% of the classroom are able to read. So such kind of diminishing literacy rate is also witnessed in primary education institutions. So we have to see the entire primary education institution as a whole unit and understand what are the different issues related to it. So in the body part 1, we will talk about different issues plaguing primary education. Then in the body part 2, we will talk about some measures to ensure impactful outcomes of learning. So let us first see the body part. Body 1, issues, right? Firstly, poor learning outcome. Over here, you can cite some parallel data that we talked in the introduction. You can talk about how class 5 students, their reading comprehension is also diminishing. In 2018, the rate was almost 50% of the students were able to read the textbook, which in 2022 shrink to 40%. So that's something which is reflection of primary education, how their learning outcome have been shrinking. So that's one issue. We can talk about infrastructural deficit. Different kind of infrastructural units you can understand, either in form of the building, classroom, basic utilities like fan or learning accessories. You can also talk about access to sanitation. So we have witnessed that only 76% of the primary education institutions have access to drinking water. Rest 24 institutions do not have such basic infrastructural units as well. So you can understand, if certain basic things are not there, other secondary things, proper playground and all, etc., are definitely in deficit. So that is there for the infrastructure deficit. You can also talk about quality of teachers. When we are talking about quality of teachers, we are making sure that teachers are trained, they are engaging with the student at different points in the classroom through assessment. So that kind of quality is not in uniformity across different primary education. So quality of teacher is a miss. One of another reason that you can also talk about why there is a absence of quality of teachers is because the teachers in most of the government school, they are also occupied with administrative issues, right? So proper role allocation as well as training is not justificably done. Then you talk about teacher absenteeism, right? That shows lack of accountability. Over here, we must understand that we have witnessed that several government schools as well as private schools, the teachers, they are not just enrolled in the job as in primarily, they also moonlight either through tuitions and all or different works. So because of such kind of engagement, the absenteeism definitely impacts the learning outcome of the students. And the last is high dropout rates. We can understand this thing from the gender's perspective. We have witnessed that especially girls, they face lot of hurdles with respect to engaging themselves with the education institutions. They are forced to leave the school and engage in stereotypical roles, working in the household. So such kind of discrimination is also leading to issues with respect to primary education. Now these are the major issues. You can also add a lot of different dimensions. But for our answer, this much points are sufficient. Now let us see what measures that can be implemented to ensure impactful outcome of learning. The very first, you can talk about how basic needs, basic primary infrastructure must be there. So budgetary allocation must be there to ensure infrastructure, the right infrastructure for learning is in place. Enabling structures must be there to ensure students are learning as well as their basic needs are also satisfied, as in drinking water, access to sanitation, right? So that's infrastructure. Quality of teacher. Without teacher or a skilled teacher in the classroom, students do not have proper direction with respect to the learning prospects. So quality of teacher must be there. There should be routine training involved. The principal should also ensure that teacher, they are getting the right kind of access and exposure so that they can pass on the same learning to the students. Apart from that, extracurricular activities should also be ensured in the school. They must be encouraged so that students have certain kind of investment, learning investment in the primary education unit. Apart from that, there are various clauses of Right to Education Act like teacher pupil ratio, which are violated most of the time by both government and private schools. So certain kind of specific provisions should be implemented mandatorily. And the last is assessment and evaluation tool. Without understanding what exactly student is learning, you cannot move ahead. So certain feedback channels must be ensured that proper assessments are taken thrice a year or multiple times a year to ensure that whatever teaching quality is going on, it's converting into learning outcomes. So assessment and evaluation tool is also a great measure. In the conclusion, you can talk about major government initiatives like Nipun Bharat. You can also talk about certain state interventions like Delhi school model, right? And overall, at the end, you can also talk about national education policy, how there are multiple provisions to ensure the focus is learning outcomes. Because at the end, when the student or the children, they are going out of the school, they must be well equipped with the knowledge to, make sure they pass on that learning into some kind of meaningful thing in the society. So we have multiple government initiatives that you can mention in the conclusion, or you can talk about national education policy and how it aligns with student learning outcome. Now let us see the model answer and understand how exactly we can pinpoint things for our writing practice. So we talked about USR report, you talked about enrollment rise, we saw how you can convert that into data and make your introduction more catchy. In the body part, we talked about issues, we talked about learning outcomes, we gave data about different classes. You can talk about infrastructure deficit, drinking water, the specific example we already discussed. You can talk about quality of teacher absenteeism. So there are multiple reports where specific proof points are gathered to understand why exactly certain kind of issues are there. So you can mention all those points in the issues. In the measures, we talked about infrastructure, quality, extracurricular activities, how government should implement certain provisions in mandatory nature like pupil ratio, teacher pupil ratio, assessment and evaluation tool, and at the end how over here there's a conclusion in a different way that how primary education is gateway towards the journey of lifelong learning. So that can also be a great conclusion. So that's it for the question number 1. Let's move to the question number 2. Question number 2. Despite having self-sufficiency in food production, India still faces the challenges of hunger and food insecurity. Throw light upon the factors causing these challenges and suggest measures that government can take for the same. So if you break down the question, you will understand there's a first statement which talks about there is self-sufficiency in food production, but there are certain challenges of hunger and food security still there. So you can convert this for the introduction. You can talk about in how 1950 to 51, India was producing 50 million tons of food, which now if you fast forward to 2019-20, we are doing 6 times more food production, that is 300 million tons. Now that definitely reflects that India has progressed with respect to the food production. However, there are certain contradictory reports with respect to hunger. We have seen that International Food Security Assessment, where it is explicitly mentioned that almost 65% of Indian population, as in 2022-23, they do not have access to proper nutritious food. So that's a huge number that almost touches around billion population. So that's an issue. Apart from that, we have also seen multiple indices like Global Hunger Index. We have seen how India is performing abysmally. We are 107th out of 121 and our score is 29, which says that we are facing serious issue with respect to hunger. Now, that's the introduction part. In the body part, you can talk about different factors causing these challenges in body 1. And in suggest measures, you can talk about different measures in the body 2 that government can take to ensure the challenges are eliminated. Now let's talk about the body 1, the factors. The primary factor behind such kind of mismatch is kind of a wicked problem of poverty. We have understood that India faces multi-dimensional poverty and almost 18% of the population, or you can talk about as in 230 million people in India face this kind of issue. Now, when you do not have basically access to basic necessities, it directly impacts your access to food security. You won't be able to provide, as in individual or the household won't be able to provide the sufficient food to the entire house, and that's because of poverty. So poverty directly impacts the hunger and vice versa. We also have ineffective implementation of schemes. We have seen multiple schemes are there for food like National Food Security Act. However, there are certain challenges with respect to targeting. Now, the National Food Security Act is open for majority of the population, despite we know that there is specific population which needs more attention. So, to understand, there should be proper targeted beneficiary model where intensity of the poverty and intensity of the deficiency is also undertaken. So over here we are talking about little bit on the lines of affirmative action, that people who are deprived much, they should be getting the compensation in a commensurate manner. So effective implementation of schemes through proper targeting. Also there should be proper metrics, as in when we have certain policies like midday meal, we are definitely giving out children proper food and all, but there are certain micro deficiency as well, or you can say it as hidden hunger, right, where we understand that there are different elements which are not properly considered in the midday meal and all. So over there should be proper policy where specific region or specific population must be given that kind of bridging micronutrients, so that policy is realizing its true potential. Then we have another element of gender inequality, where we have seen that how Indian society is patriarchal in nature, and because of that kind of ideological system, we have seen that women face a lot of discrimination. We have also seen through economic survey that how there is sun meta preference. All this translates into exclusion of women from proper uh, proper network of food security. So gender inequality also is a point. Apart from that, when we are talking about food security, we also have issue of climate change. Because of uncertainty with respect to the climate, our production systems are also little bit in dissonance, and that is impacting the entire food production as well as those who are directly dependent on the agricultural activities. So climate change is also a factor that is causing the issue of hunger and food insecurity. Now let us see what are different possible measures that government can take to eliminate these issues. So first measure that we can talk about is to reform the PDS system. We have public distribution system in India to ensure the access of food. However, there are certain kind of challenges associated with it, because there is a lot of leakages and corruption. PDS have not been successfully realized their potential. So to reform PDS should be the primary thing to ensure that food security is there till the last mile. Apart from that, effective implementation of existing scheme, we talked about targeting the beneficiaries in efficient manner. We talked about making sure our policies ensuring whatever gaps are there with respect to micronutrients deficiency, hidden hunger. So effective implementation of existing scheme can also help us to ensure food security and eliminate the problem of hunger. Then we can also talk about promoting sustainable agriculture, as we have seen that how climate change is disrupting the agricultural output. Sustainable agriculture forms can ensure there's conservation of soil, there's conservation of different ecological resources. At the same time, we also have sufficient food production to ensure sustainable livelihood as well as eliminate the problem of hunger. Then there is another innovative solution that we can add is social security net. We have seen that how universal basic income in economic survey can definitely aid people to get out of the poverty trap zone. So such kind of social security, social safety nets can also help individuals to beat the issue of hunger and food insecurity. So these are the body aspect. In the conclusion, you can talk about either SDGs, as we have seen that SDG 2 is specifically with respect to hunger and how that problem must be eliminated. You can add that in the conclusion. Also, we can talk about how government initiatives like National Food Security Act, Poshan 2.0, they must be reformed in such a way that all the issues that we talked about in effective implementation are catered here, and thus you can conclude your answer with multiple options like this. Now let us see the model answer and understand how we can use for our answer writing practice. In the first, we talked about global hunger index, we talked about food production. You can also add data from National Family Health Survey. There are multiple data points which talks about the issue of hunger, talks about different dimensions related to hunger, so that you can add there. You can talk about in the body one different factors, poverty, inequality, climate change. Apart from that, in the measures part also, you can add multiple points, and it's always an advantageous thing to add substantiation, because substantiation will definitely give depth to your argument. So adding substantiation, you can use model answers to understand how you can add substantiation, and in the conclusion you can talk about how it's a positive step and different initiatives are crucial. At the same time, poverty elevation and reforming the PDS structure is also need of the hour. So this is for answer for question number 2. Now let us move to question number 3. India's journey from women development to women-led development reflects immense progress in empowering women. In this context, discuss the significance and challenges associated with Women Reservation Bill. So recently we saw Women Reservation Bill. Lok Sabha also passed the same with prompt action. So we will talk about this in our current affair based question. So you can start the introduction and you can use the data from the first statement. Journey is from women development to women led development. Over here, you can talk about different reports and data point. You can either talk about that how India's rank with respect to global gender gap report. We ranked almost 127 out of 146. This shows that we have certain issues with respect to women empowerment in India. However, there are different pillars of this report, and political empowerment. India ranked 59. So it shows that definitely India is on the right track towards political empowerment. Apart from that, you can also talk about how presently only 15% of legislative seats are occupied by women, despite being 50% of the population, right? So these are the kind of data points that you can add, and that is why the Women Reservation Bill is very significant. Now let's go to the body 1 and we will talk about significance. In the body 2, we will talk about challenges, and in the conclusion, we will add a little bit of way ahead. So body 1, significance of the bill. The very first thing that you can add here is it will increase the political participation of women. You do understand, when you increase the political participation of women, you will be able to understand the perspective and issues of half the population of the nation. So from 80 seats, it will directly augment to 181 seats. Now such kind of change will give voice to women, and thus a varied perspective can help with respect to overall development of the nation. Now second thing, it will promote inclusive governance. As we have talked, how they will bring and help the entire governance mechanisms to understand the different issues. They will help understand us to the context of different issues. So it will promote inclusive governance. Apart from that, it will break stereotypes with respect to gender. So it will promote gender equality as well. So as we have seen that Indian society is having high degree of patriarchal nature, and there are certain kind of stereotypes associated with such kind of society structures. Through reservation bill, they will be able to take leadership role in the political processes, and such kind of leadership role will not only just inspire different women but also impact their lives in positive manner. So that's promoting gender equality. Apart from that, it will also boost international image. Through such kind of intervention, India truly represents how the democracy works, and higher the efficiency of our democracy, better our governance structures are, and thus international societies and international mechanisms and different nations will see India as a very inclusive society and would definitely like to make sure that they have better ties with us. So that is a boost to international image. Now definitely bill provides us a lot of benefit, but there are certain challenges with respect to bill itself, and let's see those. First, it may promote tokenism. We have seen certain kind of issues with respect to this kind of reservation. We have seen in Panchayat Raj institutions how women are provided reservation as a tool for empowerment, but because as we have mentioned that the society is a bit patriarchal in nature, there is issue of Sarpanch Pati, where the male member or the husband overtakes the power, the charge of the women representative. So such kind of tokenism can also, drop, or we can say such kind of tokenism will definitely affect the true objective of this bill. Second, reservation rotation. Now there are various reports which have mentioned that because of such kind of reservation rotation, which is a kind of a part of the bill, there would be issues with respect to stability. So it will affect stability. Third point is social disharmony. We have seen in India multiple violent riots with respect to demand for reservation. So granting reservation can also open floodgates for different other communities to demand for reservation. Then that can definitely impact the social cohesion and harmony. The last point is lack of political consensus. Despite the bill being passed from Lok Sabha, there are multiple groups which are against the very nature of the bill in the present state. There are certain groups based on religious identity. From minority group, they are demanding that minority religion should also get reservation. Specifically, when we are talking about women reservation bill, there should be sub quota. Even certain sections are excluded, like OBCs are not given reservation for women. So certain kind of structures in the policy in the bill itself are proving to be challenging. So lack of political consensus is product of such kind of challenges. So that is there for the body part. Now let us move on to the conclusion. Over here you have amazing possibility of writing conclusion. You can talk about different possibility like way ahead. You can talk about how there is need for awareness in the society with respect to gender empowerment and gender equality. Also, there should be different workshops, different training segments with respect to sensitization of every individual towards opposite gender. So that's there you can add for the way forward. Apart from that, you can also talk about how behavioral nudge that we have witnessed in Swachh Bharat Abhiyan can also be used as a tool to empower women. So all these points you can add in the way ahead. So let us see the model answer and understand how we can inculcate the same in our answer practice. So first you can talk about data in the introduction and help with a little bit about features of the bill. Then you can talk about significance. You can add multiple points like political participation, inclusive growth, gender equality, international image. So such kind of significance of bill definitely shows the salient feature of bill and how it will impact the Indian society. You can talk about challenges, add multiple points like tokenism, give some justification through examples like Sarpanch Pati, reservation rotation. You can talk about different committees which have pointed out that frequent rotation hampers decision making and stability of the government. You can talk about this social disharmony. You can also talk about political consensus like sub quota of OBC and Muslim women. And at the end, you can talk about way forward and so on. So this is for the question number 3. I hope all these videos are helping you a lot. Thank you so much.